Hello, friend. Welcome back to History for Sleepyheads. Wherever you are joining from tonight, whether tucked into bed, curled up on a sofa, or maybe listening quietly during a late-night study session, I invite you to get comfortable, dim the lights, and let your mind wander far, far back in time. Because tonight, we're going to travel together through history's quieter corridors, not chasing the footsteps of emperors, kings, or generals, but listening instead to the soft echoes of unsung heroes. These were the people who rarely had statues raised in their honor, or names etched into marble. Yet without them, history as we know it simply wouldn't exist. From the Roman legionary who marched into lands unknown, to the scribe hunched over clay tablets in Mesopotamia, to the unknown midwife whose steady hands saved countless mothers and infants in the dark centuries of plague and war. Their names might be forgotten, but their stories still breathe through the ages. And together, we'll walk through those stories tonight. If you're new here, and this kind of gentle journey through the past sounds like something you'd enjoy, go ahead and give the channel a quick subscribe. It helps us keep making these. And to those who already have, thank you for being part of this cozy corner of history. So take a deep breath, allow yourself to relax, and let's step into the past, hand in hand with those who kept history alive without ever being remembered. Imagine waking up, not in your bed, but in a tent pitched on the edge of an ancient battlefield. You hear the crackling of early morning fires, smell the faint mix of wood smoke, damp earth, and iron from sharpened blades. Around you, ordinary men stir awake, stretching cold limbs, lacing worn sandals, pulling weathered cloaks tighter against the damp chill. Yet, none of these figures are celebrated names from your history books. They are the countless, nameless ones. The fabric of the past was woven from their quiet endurance. And as the sun begins to rise in our long journey together tonight, you realize, this script isn't about history's headlines. It's about whispers. About salt-stained hands, soot-covered faces, and everyday bravery. The unknown legionary of ancient Rome. Close your eyes for a moment. And imagine the weight of a helmet pressing lightly against your brow. The metal is not gleaming and ceremonial, but dulled from years of use, faintly smelling of oil and the sweat of countless marches. You stir awake to the first sound of a Roman camp, boots scraping against gravel, the murmur of Latin voices trading quiet greetings, and the steady rhythm of hammers against tent pegs as soldiers strike camp at dawn. You are not a general, not a senator, not even a name that will ever find its way into the scrolls of Rome's historians. No. You are a legionary, one among thousands. One pair of feet in a marching column that will carry Rome's borders farther north, farther west, farther east than you ever dreamed as a child. The ground beneath you is still damp from dew. As you stretch, you smell smoke trailing upward from last night's campfires, mingling with the earthy scent of trampled grass and leather armor. In your hand, your gladius feels reassuring, a short sword, simple, pragmatic. Not a weapon of glory carved in silver and jewels, but a tool, sharpened and ready. You slip the shield strap over your shoulder, its face still carrying the faded thunderbolt emblem of Jupiter. The wood scratches slightly against your arm, but the sensation is familiar, almost comforting. Around you, other soldiers move through the motions in practiced silence. A cough there, the crunch of bread being broken in another corner, a flask of watered wine being passed along. No one rushes. After years of service, you know that Rome's empire doesn't expand because of sudden glory, but because of this endless repetition. Step after step, line after line. By the time the sun fully rises, you are marching. Sandals, reinforced with hobnails, press into the dirt road in perfect synchronization with thousands of others. The sound is hypnotic, thud, 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 a heartbeat of empire stretching down every Roman road. The march is long, sometimes endless. Yet the mind finds comfort in repetition. You feel the coarse fabric of your tunic rubbing against damp skin. The leather straps of your pack, 40, sometimes 50 pounds of gear, dig into the muscles of your shoulders. Inside there's no room for luxury, rations of grain, hard bread, dried fruit when you're lucky, your cooking pan, a bundle of half-burned firewood, a spare pair of sandals. Everything carried on your back. It is not glamorous. But pause, and look around. The dust of the road lifts in soft spirals as hundreds of men march ahead of you, their shields like small suns catching glimmers of light. To your right, a farmer peeks curiously from his field, watching the endless snake of Rome's power pass by his humble cottage. To your left, you glimpse a patch of pine forest, resin heavy in the air, birds startled into sudden flight by the noise of your cohort. This is the reality of the Roman machine, not emperors on marble thrones, but tired, sunburnt men stomping over stones until roads themselves seem carved into eternity. If you're enjoying walking alongside this forgotten soldier, give this video a gentle like. It's a small action, but it helps carry our own little legion of sleepy listeners farther than you'd imagine. Night comes again. A temporary camp is built, quick, disciplined, efficient. Palisade stakes hammered into soil, tents arranged with mathematical precision, guards stationed at the perimeter. Inside, the fire crackles, throwing orange onto weary faces. You listen to men trading stories of home, some from farms in Latium, others from fishing villages near the sea, still others from Gaul or Hispania. Rome's legions are patched together from many lands, many accents, many memories. And here, in the quiet, fear makes its presence felt. Who do you fight tomorrow? Barbarian tribes whose names you only faintly recognize. The whispers say they paint their skin, scream before charging, fight until the last. You imagine it, the wild cries, the faster beating of your heart beneath the slow, steady drum of the centurion. But here, now, in the fire's glow, you hear the calmer sounds, the hiss of bread baking against embers, the faint clink of armor being repaired, the sigh of a comrade turning over to sleep. This is the part of history often unwritten, the long silences where fear is calmed not by speeches of emperors, but by the steady rituals of common men. You never asked for statues. You serve because it is duty, or because the stipend feeds your family back home, or perhaps because war is the only trade you've ever known. Tomorrow, should you fall, your name will be recorded in no great epic. Perhaps a simple tally mark kept in some clerk's scroll, 3 men lost, 1 shield missing, rations accounted for. And yet, without you, Rome cannot be. The city's marble forums, the aqueducts, the bustling marketplaces with their rich colors and spices, all of it rests on anonymous backs. Soldiers like you. Feet like yours. Your story may not be carved into stone, but the road you walk on, built by your own hands, will outlast you. And in that way, every legionary is remembered, even when unnamed. As the night deepens around the campfires, your eyes grow heavy. You lie back, the scent of pine and smoke filling your lungs. Stars scatter across the sky, uncountable, distant. Somewhere, perhaps a century from now, someone will walk the ruins of this very place and wonder who once stood here. And the answer, dear listener, is you. The forgotten soldier, the heartbeat of an empire. What do you think? If you were a legionary, would you survive the endless marches of Rome? Or would you have traded armor for a life of farming back home? Leave me a comment. I read everyone, and I'd love to know which path you choose. So ready yourself, dear listener, because for the next hour or more we'll pass through empires and villages, through shadows of wars and the glow of quiet hearths, all guided by the voices of history's unsung heroes. The medieval midwife. Imagine the echo of church bells fading into a misty night. It is the 12th century, somewhere in a small village nestled against the green folds of the English countryside. Stone cottages squat against the drizzle, their thatched roofs damp and sweet-smelling from rain, smoke trailing lazily from crooked chimneys. You walk along a muddy lane where candlelight flickers faintly through shuttered windows. Dogs stir, chickens shift in their coops, and from afar you hear the creak of a cart wheel turning slowly homeward. But tonight your footsteps have purpose, for you are not a noble, nor a knight, nor one of the clergy whose parchments decide fates in distant abbeys. You are a midwife. Your satchel is simple: cloth, herbs, a small knife kept sharp with care, linen strips carefully rolled, and charms gifted by mothers who whisper prayers for luck. Your hands are capable, calloused perhaps from chores, but steady, trained in the quiet science of birth passed down through women for generations. And as you move through mud and mist to a cottage where a woman labors, you carry with you not authority carved into law, but something older, something both feared and revered, the mystery of life itself. You knock gently at the timber door. Inside, breathless voices answer. The husband, pale and anxious, opens and beckons you in with desperate eyes. At once, the world narrows. You step into warmth thick with the smell of tallow candles and wood smoke. The air is sweet with rushes strewn clean across the floor, tinged now with the metallic bite of blood and sweat. You hear the rhythmic groans of the mother, her hands clutching coarse sheets, whispered prayers falling from cracked lips. The women of the household gather at the edges, sisters, cousins, neighbors, faces tense, voices lowered. In these walls, men's authority fades. This is women's work, guided by those with knowledge of herbs, timing, touch. And tonight that is you. You set your satchel down, its familiar weight thumping against wood. Out come bundles wrapped carefully in scraps of cloth, sprigs of lavender, used for both comfort and masking scent, fennel seeds to calm a queasy stomach, honey water to restore strength between pains. Your tools are not instruments of gleaming steel. No, these are simple, rooted in earth. A boiled cloth to wipe sweat, a small candle to keep light steady, thread to tie the cord once the child greets the world. But your most important tool is not in the satchel at all. It is your presence. The rhythm of your voice, low and even, guiding mother and family alike through the storm. Breathe. Hold. Push. Rest. Each word paced like a tide, reassuring, steady, bridging terror with trust. How many times have you walked this road? Dozens, perhaps more? Sometimes the story ends in laughter, in swaddled joy. Sometimes it ends quietly, shadows falling quickly. The risk is always near, fever, blood loss, weakness. But still, women call for you, again and again, because you hold knowledge when knowledge is scarce, courage when fear overwhelms. Outside these cramped cottages, whispers about women like you drift over tavern benches and church pews. Some call you healer. Others, whisper witch. In a time where the church dominates thought, the mysteries of blood and birth unsettle. Clerics write in Latin about sin, about Eve, about suffering as punishment. Yet here, in the privacy of a poor woman's home, it is your herbs, your calming chants, your understanding of the body, not theology, that decides survival. Do you notice the glances sometimes, the crossing of themselves as you pass in the marketplace with your basket of herbs? You do. But you carry on. Because for every suspicious look, there are mothers holding children who would not have lived without you. And that is enough. Hours pass and struggle. Candles burn low. The fire beside you glows with the smell of resinous pine, crackling quietly. The mother grips your hand until your knuckles whiten, her fingernails biting into your skin. Sweat beads across your brow as much as hers. And then, the cry. So sudden, so sharp, it silences every other sound. The child's voice breaks the thick air, high and defiant. Relief floods the room, followed quickly by tears, laughter, murmur thanks to saints whose names tumble clumsily off unlearned tongues. You wash the linen-wrapped child carefully, tie the cord with practiced hands, place the small trembling bundle into exhausted arms. For a moment, everything else falls away. The rain against the roof goes unheard, the anxious breath of the father is forgotten. There is only this fragile, red-faced miracle blinking in the wavering light. The mother's tired eyes meet yours. Gratitude shines there, unspoken but heavy. You nod softly. Another story for the unseen history of your life, another quiet victory added to countless nameless women's legacies. There will be no parchment with your name. No monk will paint you into illuminated manuscripts. The chronicles of kings and crusades will march on, utterly unaware of the midnight labor you guided tonight. And yet, entire villages breathe because of women like you. Every generation is carried across the dangerous threshold of birth by hands uncelebrated. Without your work, the bloodlines of nobles and peasants alike would dim and vanish. History writes of power. But truly it survives because of persistence. Women kneeling beside straw pallets, steady hands bringing forth life in the humblest rooms. You gather your satchel again, worn straps cutting gently into your shoulder. The rain has stopped outside, though the mud still clings heavy to your shoes. A cock begins to crow in the distance, signaling dawn. And you, weary now, step back into the lane knowing another knock at another door may come tomorrow. But tonight you carry the quiet triumph of a life saved, a mother spared, the whisper of a heartbeat that will grow into history's endless tapestry. And so, while names may be forgotten, the legacy of unsung heroes like you runs deeper than parchment ever could. If you're still with me here in the quiet lanes of medieval Europe, tell me in the comments, do you think you could have handled the life of a midwife in those times? Or would the weight of expectation and fear have been too much? I'd love to hear your thoughts. The silent scribes of Mesopotamia. Imagine yourself in the cradle of civilization, where two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, wind like silver threads through fields of barley and reeds. It is night. The heat of the day lingers, slow and heavy, broken only by the rush of wind across clay rooftops and the faint trickle of irrigation canals. You duck beneath a low doorway into the chamber of a Mesopotamian scribe. The air inside is cooler, scented faintly with oil lamps that sputter, their smoke curling into the rafters. A simple wooden table stands before you, and spread across it, damp clay tablets, their surfaces soft and waiting. The scribe does not wear armor, nor command armies. He holds only a stylus, a sharpened reed cut from the marshes. Yet as he leans over the tablet, pressing careful wedges into its surface, you realize you are witnessing one of humanity's quietest revolutions. Without scribes, memory would dissolve. Laws would fade, trade agreements crumble, harvest records vanish. They are not heroes in shining form, they are heroes of patience. Listen closely. You hear the tap, tap, press of the reed biting into clay. Each stroke is precise, an entire language of shapes, cuneiform. Wedges angled left, right, downward. To the untrained eye it is scratches. To those who know, it is life frozen in time. The scribe's day begins early. He rises before the sun crests across the flat horizon, eats bread dipped in honey and dates, and makes his way to the temple or palace where records wait. Unlike most of his neighbors, he can read. Unlike nearly everyone else, he can write. The stylus fits comfortably into his hand, worn smooth from years of practice. He records which farms bring in barley, which merchants pay, which gods must be honored with gifts. He does not question. He preserves. Children chase one another in the street outside, their laughter muffled by thick walls. Oxen groan in the fields, water wheels creak, women pound grain in stone mortars. Daily life rushes forward, yet here, inside, a scribe works quietly to trap the rushing river of time in clay. Do you notice how his posture never slumps? A trained scribe stands with pride. For in a world where memory itself is fragile, the scribe is guardian, not of soldiers, not of gold, but of knowledge. Centuries from now, long after his name is dust, archaeologists will dig in desert sand and find his tablet, still legible, still sharp, as though the reed pressed into it yesterday. That is the miracle of this unsung hero. He does not fight wars, yet long after empires fall, his marks remain. Every epic of Gilgamesh, every law of Hammurabi, none of it would live without thousands of silent, nameless scribes bending over clay. And tonight, in this flickering chamber, you can almost feel the weight of history resting on their steady hands. If you could step into ancient Mesopotamia, would you have wanted to be a scribe, patiently tapping marks into clay? Or would you have craved the sun and open air of the fields? Leave me a little note. I'd love to know which path you take. African Griot storytellers. And now, drift with me further south, many centuries away, into the warm heartbeat of Africa. Imagine night has fallen again, but this time the air is alive with cicadas, their high-pitched hum blending with distant drums. You find yourself in a village clearing. A fire burns at the center, its smoke rising into a black velvet sky scattered with stars. Children cluster at the edge. Elders lean on carved staffs. Women hum softly, weaving baskets even as they listen. At the heart of it all sits a griot, the storyteller, memory keeper, singer of the people. His voice is low at first, almost like chanting. He plucks at a kora, its strings shimmering in the firelight, notes falling like water. And the story begins. Griots are not kings, though kings depend on them. They are not warriors, though warriors seek their blessing before battle. Their weapon is the word. Their treasure, memory. Close your eyes and listen. Hear how he stretches syllables, how he builds rhythm until the night itself feels like it's swaying. His tales carry genealogies, lineages stretching back 100 years. His songs hold victories, tragedies, migrations, harvests, storms survived. The griot is a living library, passing wisdom not through clay tablets, but through voice, melody, and memory. You notice how children lean forward, eyes glimmering. The fire crackles, sparks sailing upward, but no one moves. They are riveted. For in this moment, the griot is not simply recalling the past, he is giving it pulse, breath, soul. He tells of a warrior who once fought with courage so fierce the rivers themselves shifted course. He sings of a queen who ruled with wisdom, her voice strong as rain on parched earth. For the griot, myth and memory are woven together, inseparable, teaching as much as entertaining. And, like all unsung heroes, his name may not survive long past his own life. But his influence is endless. For each child who memorizes his story carries it onward, altering it slightly with each telling, a thread in Africa's vast oral tapestry. You ask yourself, how does the griot remember so much? Thousands of names, dates, songs, stories. The answer is discipline. From boyhood, an apprentice griot listens, repeats, learns to hear rhythm so deeply that memory drums into bone. Every performance is more than entertainment. It is history sung. It is identity preserved. Without him, whole dynasties disappear into silence. With him, they live as long as breath exists. Think of the burden. To forget is not simply a mistake, it is erasing a people's soul. And yet, night after night, griots keep stories alive with patience, music, and fire. The tale winds down. The children reluctantly nestle against their mothers, still wide-eyed. The drummers soften into silence. The fire collapses to glowing embers. The griot rises slowly, his kora slung across his back, and disappears into the night, carrying the weight of centuries in his songs. And in the hush that follows, you realize you have just sat in the company of one of history's unsung giants. No monuments will bear his likeness. But across the villages, across generations, his voice echoes still in countless anonymous hearts. What about you? Do you prefer history written in books, or history remembered in stories told aloud? Let me know. I'd love to see which one resonates most with our community. The Arctic Whaler's Unnamed Guides. Feel the air grow sharp against your skin. Each breath you take is thin, so cold it almost slices the back of your throat. Welcome to the Arctic. The world here is a palette of white and gray and blue, where even silence itself feels frozen. You stand on the creaking deck of a wooden whaling vessel in the early 1800s. The timbers groan and complain as they push against jagged ice. The sailors around you are bundled in furs, their beards stiff with frost, their breath curling into ghostly plumes. Their lips crack when they speak, their hands blister in the unending wind. And yet, for all their courage, without the quiet guidance of people they once called savages, they would be lost. At the bow of the ship now stands such a figure, a native guide. Perhaps an Inuit hunter, perhaps a Sami herder turned scout. His name will likely never appear in any naval record, nor be sung in European halls. But it is his eyes, trained, patient, that read the land when foreign eyes see only endless white. He kneels and brushes fingertips across the ice. To the rest of the crew it is meaningless. But he can read the snow like sentences. Like a scribe with his clay tablet, he sees where the ice is thin, where seals surface, where the wind hides its voice. You watch him gaze into the horizon, head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring to test the faint scent of salt versus ice. His silent decision steers ships away from disaster, toward survival. Imagine the sailors without him, trapped, starving, frozen into ghost ships swallowed by drifting floes. This has happened many times. Yet with him guiding, pointing silently, raising one gloved hand, shaping paths over fields of death, they survive. On land, his knowledge is deeper still. He shows which mosses can be eaten in famine, how to build snow shelters that glow blue inside, how to listen for the shifting cracks that signal danger below your boots. His harpoon, carved of bone, strikes seals and earns the crew meals that keep scurvy at bay. And when night falls over the polar world, auroras blooming green and violet above, it is he who lights the oil lamps inside a shelter of snow blocks, laughter of sailors echoing improbably in a dome carved from ice. He is unsung, yes. The ship's log will mention native help, but never his name. Yet crews live because of him. Nations benefit, whale oil fuels lamps in distant London drawing rooms, all made possible by the unnamed hunter at the front of the ship. The cold shifts around you. You imagine standing there, boots sinking into snow, fingers numb, heart racing at the howl of wolves carried on northern wind. Would you survive? Perhaps not. Few could. But this quiet guide does not wonder. His life begins and ends in places others call wasteland, but to him, it is home. He needs no statues. The snow itself remembers his steps, the stars his map, the whales his legacy. And so, without him, Europe's age of Arctic exploration would almost certainly falter. With him, men returned alive, ships returned stocked, and history, once again, was written on the back of an unsung hero. Let me ask you, could you survive a single Arctic night with only fur, fire, and instinct? Or would you find comfort only in warmer lands? Pop a comment. I'd love to hear where you think you'd thrive. The Nurses of the Crimean War. Now, let's drift to the 1850s. The air is heavy not with frost, but with the mingled stench of gunpowder, damp earth, and linen steeped in blood. The Crimean War has dragged on for years, Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire against Russia. But forget the generals, the politicians. Step with me into a dim, crowded hospital ward on the outskirts of Scutari. You smell it before you see it, iron tang of blood, sour sweat, sickness that clings to walls. The groans of men roll like waves, low, pained, unending. Shadows stretch long from flickering oil lamps, their light resting on cots crowded too close, soldiers wrapped in bandages yellowed from neglect. In the midst of this suffering move women in plain dresses, their sleeves rolled, faces pale with fatigue. You know one of their names, Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp. But dozens more work here nameless, their sacrifices equally heavy. Women who scrub wounds, empty chamber pots, whisper comfort into ears of boys far from home. Women who never make the papers. Women who history forgets. You stand beside one now. She wipes sweat from her brow with the back of her wrist, then plunges hands into cold water, scrubbing blood from rough cloth, wringing it out, scrubbing again. Her palms are red, cracked, raw. Yet she does not pause. She moves from one cot to the next. To one soldier she delivers bread soaked in broth, spooning it carefully between cracked lips. To another she murmurs a prayer quietly, voice steady even as the man slips away. To yet another she cuts away infected bandages, her fingers working quickly under lamplight as the man clenches teeth against muffled cries. Hours blur. Night and day hardly matter in this ward. There is only need, endless as war itself. Few realize that half these women receive no pay. Many brought themselves here at their own cost, driven not by glory but by deep compassion or faith. Some are widows of soldiers, others poor women seeking meaning, still others simple servants called into greater duty. History will remember the reformer, the administrator, the figurehead. But who remembers the girl who boiled sheets, the one who carried water, the one who stroked hair of a dying man and whispered of fields far away so his last breath carried comfort? Tonight we remember them. Quietly. With gratitude. Because the war may end, the generals may sign their treaties, but the memory of mercy, of a cool cloth placed on fevered skin, is what truly carried humanity forward. The lamp flickers. The ward grows still for a brief sliver of time. Our anonymous nurse slumps into a chair against the wall, eyes closed, hands folded in her lap. She is young, perhaps no older than 19. But her eyes, when she opens them again, are already ancient, etched with sorrow, endurance, and something like hope. She will not be remembered in books. She will not be pictured in paintings. But hundreds lived longer because of her simple touch. And perhaps that, listener, is heroism at its purest. Would you have had the courage to tend to the endless stream of wounded, day after day, with infection and death a breath away? Or would you have stepped back in fear? There's no wrong answer. I'd simply love to hear your heart on it. The Underground Railroad's quiet helpers. Now the night grows darker. The air is thick with summer heat, the chorus of crickets carrying across distant fields. You find yourself in 19th century America, somewhere along the shadowy border between slavery and freedom. You stand outside a farmhouse that looks unremarkable in daylight, but tonight it holds a secret. The lantern in the window burns faintly, almost invisible from the road. But to those who know the signs, it is a beacon brighter than any flame. Inside, a family stirs quietly. Boards beneath the rug creak as they lift a hidden panel. Beneath, a narrow hollow, dusty, cramped, but life-saving. Into it crawl a mother, father, and their 2 children, their eyes wide but hopeful, clutching one another tightly. The host family says nothing. Words are dangerous. Instead, they share gestures, a squeeze of the hand, a flask of water, a crust of bread slipped quickly into trembling fingers. By morning, the hidden guests will be gone, led by another helper to the next stop, then the next. each step closer to freedom. Each step carried on the shoulders of unsung heroes who asked for nothing in return. You hear the muffled sound of a horse on the road outside. Conversation in the house freezes. Hearts pound. In that silence you realize, this ordinary family risks everything. If caught, they could be fined, ruined, even killed. And yet, they chose to risk. Why? Because sometimes heroism is not loud. It is the decision to risk your name, your bread, your children's safety, for the life of someone else. They will never be presidents. They will never sit in halls of power. They only hold lamps, bake bread, and keep secrets strong enough to carry chains into silence. If you're listening right now, imagine yourself in that farmhouse. Would you have had the courage to open your door, knowing discovery could destroy you? Or would you stay quiet in fear? Comment gently. I love reading your thoughts. Forgotten inventors. Let us leave the shadows of barns and fields, and step instead into workshops filled with warm lamplight. Picture a man in the late 1700s, sleeves rolled, sweat streaking his brow as he tinkers with gears and wood. He is no great scientist with university degrees. He is a farmer, perhaps, or a village carpenter. He does not call himself an inventor. Yet from his hands emerges something new, a seed drill, a water-powered mill, a tool that makes daily life easier. The world is full of such forgotten inventors. They never patent their ideas, never publish papers, never leave behind museums filled with prototypes. But their cleverness ripples outward, into households, into streets, across generations. Think about it, someone, centuries ago, first imagined the button, the hinge, the needle's eye. Someone devised the first chimney, the first lock, the first clever loop of rope that made sailing safer. These people were not kings. They were not even always literate. But necessity made them geniuses, unsung, unrecorded, their inventions woven seamlessly into our world until no one stops to ask, who first thought of this? Their reward was not fame. It was survival. And tonight, in this soft moment, we remember them, the tinkerers, the village carpenters, the women who designed clever weaving looms, the farmers who improved plows. History does not write them down, but every life today is balanced on their quiet sparks of insight. What's one little invention you couldn't live without? A kettle, a zipper, maybe even eyeglasses? Drop it in the comments. I'm always fascinated by the everyday miracles we forget to notice. Unsung heroes of World War II. And now, the century shifts. We step into the roar of the 1940s. Everywhere, war drums sound, radios crackle, streets fill with marching boots. But once again, forget the generals, the parades, the speeches. Tonight, we walk beside the silent helpers, the resistance couriers, the codebreakers, the women working late shifts in factories humming with machines. Picture a young woman in Paris. She wears a simple dress, hair pinned in quiet curls. She looks like any other passerby. But inside her basket of bread lies a folded slip of paper, a coded message that could determine an entire operation. Her heart pounds as she crosses German checkpoints, but her face stays calm. If caught, she would be executed. Yet she walks on, step after steady step, because she has chosen to risk herself for strangers. Later, she will return home, cook supper, and sit quietly by the window. No medals. No newspapers. Yet the war's course shifted because of her courage. Now step into a dim room in Bletchley Park, England. The air is thick with smoke. Typewriters clatter, pencils scratch. Rows of women bend over machines, eyes weary but sharp, decoding intercepted transmissions. Some are mathematicians, others schoolteachers, others recruited for sheer sharpness of mind. They cannot tell anyone, not even family, what they do. history would later shout the name of Alan Turing. But behind him were thousands of women and men working silently, night after night, their anonymity ironclad. Without them, U-boats might have strangled Britain. With them, the tide turned. And across the Atlantic? Picture factory floors, hot with steam and noise, where women who had never touched tools before now rivet metal, solder wires, fill shell casings, stitch uniforms. They are called rosies sometimes, turned into symbols, but individually, they go unnamed. Mothers, daughters, farm girls, city workers. Each shift they grind away, knowing their efforts keep brothers, husbands, fathers supplied. They do not carry rifles. But without them, those rifles would be empty. So many unsung. So many forgotten. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply because the times demanded it. And as you sit here listening, perhaps somewhere cozy and safe, you realize, history is not shaped only by speeches, maps, battles. It is shaped by the courier tucking notes into bread. By the clerk working her pencil down to a nub. By the welder tightening bolts until her arms ache. Without them, the war would have swallowed everything. Tell me, listener, if you lived in those times, which path would you have followed? Would you risk undercover work, deliver coded notes, or would you prefer the diligent noise of the factory floor, knowing you helped from behind the scenes? Share below. I'd love to imagine our community scattered across all those roles. And so, dear friend, our journey tonight draws to a close. We have marched with the Legionary, steady beneath Rome's banners. We have knelt with the medieval midwife, coaxing life into fragile light. We pressed clay with the scribe, sang stories with the griot, braved blizzards with the Arctic guide, tended wounds with a young nurse, hid families in wooden floorboards, tinkered by lamplight, decoded messages in secret, riveted steel with callous hands. Each story was small on its own. Together, they formed the true heartbeat of history. The people who never make statues, never headline books, yet without them, none of the rest would stand. As you drift now toward sleep, let yourself feel that truth: greatness is rarely loud. Sometimes it is silent, steady, unremarkable, until you look closer and realize it made all the difference. If you haven't already, subscribe to our cozy corner here at History for Sleepyheads. It helps us keep spinning these long journeys through time. And leave a comment if you feel like sharing, where you're listening from, which chapter touched you most. I'd love to hear. Now close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Let the sounds of history fade into whispers. And rest easy, knowing the world has always been carried not only by the mighty, but by the quiet, the patient, the unsung. Good night, traveler. Sleep well.